Well, this story starts with an inspection, but really it was more like an autopsy because we never did hear this locomotive run. It was our job to inspect it and determine what would be needed to decommission it. Now, any locomotive that's operated in a steel mill or scrapyard operation lives a rough life, and that's what we found with this locomotive. Have you ever seen in the show Hell's Highway Through Hell? They use these Toyota Tundra trucks, but look at this. We've got this Ford F-250 tied to something, and what do you think it could be? Yep, that's how we moved the locomotive. I am glad to see there's a cone here, a fire extinguisher, a first aid kit. I like that when I look back through and see that we were well prepared. Oh yeah, that 5.4 putting the ponies down, moving 50 ton. Of course, on blacktop we had excellent traction. Probably had it in four-wheel drive. So we had the crane spotted right there. So we were pulling the locomotive and kind of shooting to get the center of the cab right in the middle of the back of the locomotive.
Give it 3 more feet. Okay.
Little final adjustment. Chalk the wheels. Start the process.
You're open for a little run over.
So we are getting ready to load this out, and we're going to do that with this crane. Now, we bought this crane from R.J. Corman. Graham bought it at an auction. I wasn't there, and he went toe-to-toe with a guy and bought that, and proud of him for that. So here we are. Now we're over the locomotive. Got to get my big rear up in that seat using that ladder. We've used this crane for all kind of stuff. Here's Graham loading out axles with it. But look what it looks like after we gussied it up. This has also got the high rail gear on it. So we cleaned and painted, did not repaint the cab, but the gray, the yellow, we put the high rail gear on it. Good looking crane now. Well, let's get back to the job site. Here we are getting ready to lift, but you know what? It was, I think, midday, and really, why not feed the crew? So we headed into town for the cantina from south of the border. That's right, Taco Bell. When you walk in and tell your crew, boys, appreciate your hard work. Money is no object. Get anything you want. That's a great day. So these guys are hitting the $5 box maybe twice. And that makes the boss happy. We do, look at that. That burrito didn't stand a chance-o. So it did make me smile. Now, we have a rule, you don't talk with your mouth full, but we definitely smile with our mouth full. So let's get back to the job site. You can tell my shirt's still clean, so we haven't finished this day yet. There in the background are the guys getting ready. Everybody's got their hard hats on. So in this process, you boom up, get the hook right over the center of the cab, get ready to lift. Inspect again, make sure everything's done right and that we're ready. Now at this point, the traction motors are disconnected. The traction motor leads, the park brake chain is off, the retainers that hold the trucks to the bottom of the locomotive are off. I'm up in the cab. He's making the final rounds to make sure that we're ready to lift. Now, why do we still have the truck attached to the locomotive? We're done pulling the locomotive in place, obviously. And just stand by. You'll see how this is done. I'm going to put the Ford to the test again, although this load will be lighter, and there's a clue for you on what we're going to be pulling this time. Here's a view from up in the cab, and it's a little bit unnerving. That probably weighed 37 tons at this point, and we were not up against the back of the crane like we could have been. There's the chart. You're always looking at the chart. So there's the truck getting ready. So while the crane lifts the locomotive, you've got the two trucks chained together, one truck to the other truck with a log chain, with a link chain, and then that is chained to the truck. And of course, when you lift the crane, with the crane, you lift the locomotive just high enough, you pull the trucks out. So now the trucks are out, we're lowering down. Lowering down's not a fast process. You don't want to get any kind of momentum or a jerky motion going in when you're lowering that down. So it lowers slowly. That crane is not really fast at anything. It's mighty, but it's not fast. So like a lot of our jobs, looks like the shadows are getting long. This is evening. Our goal is to get that down on some blocks, and we'll be done for the day. Of course, you lower down as far as you can to make, then you make adjustments in the blocks. Well, we've got a moment here. Let's look at these trucks. These are 45-ton, 50-ton trucks, chain drive. That means one axle is driven with a traction motor and a gear case. The other axle is driven by a number 200 roller chain. These are the exact same trucks that are under the 2021. You could have side rods. This locomotive had chain drive. Lowering her down, lowering her down. Getting the blocks ready. It'll sit there overnight. We'll leave the crane tied to it because tomorrow morning we're going to do another lift. Looks like there we've got the blocks ready and some flat plate on top of the blocks just to protect the wood and to give the locomotive a spot to sit on. Bring her down, bring her down. Well, there's always time for a selfie, I guess, Graham. And one selfie will do. I don't know. Well, let's go for two. Look at me with all this pipe in the background. I'm a roughneck oil well drilling, heavy duty kind of guy. Well, everybody does enjoy taking a good picture. This is one of my favorite. I think this is a Pulitzer Prize winning picture. I got myself in the top mirror, Graham in the bottom mirror, and the crane and the locomotive. I wish I'd gotten Garrett's picture in that view as well, because he's a great worker. And he ended up getting a lot of extra overtime at his full-time job, and was doing that more and more. But on this job, he was a huge help. The locomotive is now over the trailer. We picked the locomotive up, back the trailer in. The back of the locomotive comes down first. You block it up. Then we're lowering down the front of the locomotive and blocking that up. This trucking was done by Rusty's in Columbus, Ohio. Triaxle trailer, what we call a triaxle tractor, but it's triaxle drive with a steer. There is the locomotive leaving the plant, and I don't know how many years it served there, but that was the end of its tour of duty there, and the end of part one of this story. But don't go away. Here we're starting part 2. This is Graham up on top. Now it was determined this locomotive was going to meet its maker. There were no takers. Nobody wanted to buy it in the condition it was in, so we continued the process of decommissioning by disassembling it. And that's the sad part, but that's the circle of life. So here Graham is taking the doors off, the bolts that hold the nose on around the stack. Here we're using our truck, which we call Wabash. Graham's hooking the chains up. We're going to lift that whole hood off in one piece. That's a folding knuckle boom crane, and it extends. Well, looky there, the scrap hopper is here, the bin. That's a roll off, so we're going to roll it off right beside the locomotive. Hood is up in the air, and it will get swung over and put right down inside of that box. And I think we maybe filled the box twice. Although watching the pictures, I think we got both hoods and the cab in the same box. We did leave the handrails on for safety, so when you were up there, you knew where the edge of the locomotive was. So with the hoods off, what do you think the next project is? Yep, pull the engine and generator out. This is a 6-cylinder Cummins. We talked about these at our subscriber meetup in Florida. There was a Cummins mechanic there that had worked on many of these. The generator's a 1509. There's an air compressor there, belt driven off the back of the generator. This has got the radiator. So this is a whole engine base assembly. We set that off to the side like that so a fork truck could come right in there and grab it and take it to be rebuilt. Now we've switched around to the other end, lifting that hood off. That's going to go right on in this end of the scrap box, leaving room in the middle for the cab. Now this is an interesting picture. We needed to take the electrical cabinet out. Well, we're cutting anyway, so we cut the cab open like a sardine can. Can you see us starting to pull there on it? That is going to leave the electrical cabinet exposed. So we did this very gingerly. You would not want that to fall on you. But as we pulled that open, we could see what else needed torch. There it is laying down. That left the electrical cabinet exposed. So instead of taking the electrical cabinet, all the components out, we lifted the cab out in one piece. Obviously, I was quite pleased with the idea. So we reached in there with the extending knuckle boom, picked up on the electrical cabinet, made sure all the bolts were loose, had all the cables disconnected, then lifted that out in one piece, put it on a pallet, and then it left via fork truck as well. That was a huge time savings. So now this locomotive's got both hoods, both engines, the electrical cabinet gone, and it's time to start taking off the cab. We didn't really like scrapping this locomotive. 50-tonner is my favorite. It's in the top 3 probably. And isn't that a sad look for what was once a proud locomotive? So the last process is going to be to get the cab off there. The back of that truck had a winch, so we threw the cable up and over the cab. So as we pulled, it also rolled. That showed us where we needed to torch, and believe me, there are so many things that you don't see you need to torch until you tug a little, and then you go, oh, look at there, I got to get that, and I got to get that. Got filthy dirty. Underneath that cab was greasy and dirty, but did I care? No, I was happy working with my son, working on railroad equipment. There, the cab's up in the air, swung over, put in the box. This is a couple years ago, and this probably melted down now and is either Razor Blades or Toyota Tundras working on the highway to hell. Metal only, but boy did the metal get me back. I was in there without a hard hat. That's blood there on that hat where I caught something sharp, laid me open a little bit. So in the end, the locomotive won. This is Graham. We experimented with cutting the 2-inch plate, but in the end we just loaded it up on a tractor trailer, just the base. That's all that was left. And we loaded it up and it went to somebody that was really good at cutting that. Now Graham could cut that now, but at the time that was the best move. It's still snowy and icy. We've got donuts left. Put the coffee back on. We'll go out later. Now it's your turn. What story have you got?